Hello and welcome to Security Scan. I am Vishal Dahiya, and this week we will take a look at the mega reforms and restructuring of the Indian Army. In a major and significant move recently, the top commanders of the Indian Army have approved a mega plan to bring in transformative reforms in the 1.3 million strong force. These reforms will be based on 4 studies which were instituted by the Army headquarters earlier this year, with an overall aim to enhance the operational and functional efficiency of the force, optimize budget expenditure, facilitate modernization, and address aspirations. The right sizing is expected to lead to the merger of some verticals or do away with those that are redundant. The recommendations also include creating smaller, meaner, and self-contained fighting units, the integrated battle groups, IBG, with 6 battalions each. Now, these reforms will be progressively implemented in a phased manner and is expected to result in a slashing of manpower by around 1.5 lakh personnel over the next 6 to 7 years, which will eventually save around 6,000 crore rupees annually in revenue expenditure. So what are the various elements of this mega reform plan? How will they be implemented? And what will be the short-term and long-term effects of this reform process? For more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests in the studio. Let me start by introducing them to you, beginning with retired Major General Ravi Arora, Chief Editor of Indian Military Review. We also have with us retired Major General Dr. P.K. Chakraborty as well, the defense expert. And we have with us a senior journalist, somebody who has covered defense for quite some time now, Mr. Sudhir Ranjan Sen. Welcome all of you to Rajya Sabha TV studios. Let me begin with you, General Arora, to try and understand. See, this is not the first time that we're talking about reforms as far as forces are concerned, specifically if you look at the Indian Army as well. There have been commissions in the recent past as well. There have been reports as well. The latest one was the Sheketkar Committee report. So what is different here when we talk about the 4 studies which were commissioned by the Army headquarters and the recommendations on which the Army now says it will act upon?
Right. You know, this is the biggest reform being considered by the Army since independence. And so this timing is important because we are now 18 years into the 21st century. And since independence, over 70 years have passed. Not much of reform has taken place despite 13 to 14 committees or studies having gone into it, made recommendations. We still face a big threat from Pakistan. The line of control is very active. On the Chinese front also we face a threat. The line of actual control gets active now and then. We are at the cusp of becoming a global power. We are aiming to become the net service provider in Asia and beyond. So it's the right time to take stock and carry out reforms, particularly going into all the studies which have been carried out and the recommendations which have not been implemented despite being accepted by the government. So now the Army has undertaken these studies, and by the way, the Army has a big pool of brains, good expertise, institutional memory. So I think all these studies are being carried out by good experts. These studies will make recommendations. These recommendations will again be examined by experts. They are going to recommend what is feasible, what is not feasible. Many of them will be accepted. And the difference this time is we are not asking the government for money. We are saving money for the government so that more money is available for capital schemes and modernization, so that the organization becomes more responsive, effective, and efficient for operations. This is the difference this time. And you asked about what studies are going on. Of course, the first one is how to make the field formations more agile, even if they have to be reorganized, to make the Army headquarters structure faster, more efficient in decision making, and to save manpower there. Next is to study the officer cadre and make improvements in their career prospects, their responsibilities and duties. And the fourth one is on the people, the personnel below officer rank, the JCOs and the other ranks, to make their careers employability also more fruitful, so that the army gets the advantage.
Okay, so that in reality sums up the kind of studies which were commissioned and the four most important aspects which we are looking at. Jan Chakraborty, if I bring in here to try and understand out of these four studies which are being taken up by the Army top brass, and it says that they will be implemented in a phased manner. Which one do you believe is the most important one? Is it about right sizing the army, as in letting go of the extra flab or merging certain verticals, or going ahead and forming a meaner battle formations as well, like the groups which I mentioned there, the integrated battle groups, IBG?
Well, all these four studies are equally important, and they are not some great studies which cannot, as we said, but they are very more the words he used are great, that these are reforms which have never been undertaken. So if you watch, the first thing is, as he has very correctly said, is it addresses the field force. So that is one study that also is related to the overall thing you brought out, that money must be saved from the revenue budget and be available for the capital budget. As you are aware, today we got about 20% of our army budget available for capital expenses. Whereas if you take the Navy, it's got about, I think, 46, and the Air Force about 49%. I'm just giving you a comparison. So all these four studies are equally important, and they are being done by four different verticals. The field force is being done by, the names are known, but basically the field force issues stand out as something which have never been attempted in the Indian Army, because nothing is affected so far as the units are concerned. Manpower being saved is something which is probably the first time we are going into a saving. The last, I think, saving which we attempted was post-71 war, when we decided that certain categories, and the Krishna Rao committee said that the teeth to tail ratio should come down. Shekatkar committee also came out with some things like that. But the overall is that the field force committee is looking at some things, and as you brought out, the field force committee is looking for issues which are related to modernization. I'll say this. Now when I say that, say let's take, we have got a few organizations. Well, Napoleon started that the division should be the basic organization. He was the first field force commander to have started it. Even today, except for the American army and for the part of the Chinese army and now the other NATO allies, we still have the division as the basic field force. But today with this study, we are going to have independent battle groups and divisions only where possibly more than 2 brigades would be employed, that is at the strike role. So this is a major part. Next is, let's take the infantry battalion, or let's take the artillery regiment. Nobody has gone into such details as this study is going into. For the first time we are thinking, well, should we continue with 4 rifle companies, or should we have lesser? And possibly, instead of reinforcing both when they are in the assault role, have lesser reserves and try a new approach. There's a second area. The third thing which I want to bring out is the issue of army headquarters. Army headquarters today, you have as much an organization which can be centralized, and some will be sent elsewhere. Like take the military training directorate, it would go and find itself in our track possibly. And similarly, the WE, weapons and equipment, and the perspective planning directorate both merge into each other. And similarly, some elements of the military operations directorate are very common to others. Then let's take on the line directorates, which are really the owners of equipment in this thing. Even there we need some flap cutting. And third thing is the optimization of officers.
Okay.
Now, as far as this is concerned, this is a major task, I feel.
Okay.
Because why it is a major task is that you can't get officers from some other country. You have to get it from India. And today, if you ask Sudhir Ranjan Sen, would you like to join the Indian Army? He'll say, no, I'm very happy with Hindustan Times. And he'll say, you just heard him, I'm too old. But you look at today, the United States had conscription. From conscription in Vietnam, they have now become a force which today has become a volunteer force. Because today, they have been able to spread their officer recruitment. Let's say we have got today Indian Army officers coming up from 2 places.
Okay.
You got from Chennai, and the next you got from Dehradun. Today, United States has got West Point, it has got Virginia, it has got College Station, it has got at least 2 more other places from where officers are, and these officers are coming out of universities.
So broad basing the entire.
Broad basing, sir. And can you imagine today Delhi University having an academy? I just visited College Station right now, where my son happens to be an assistant professor. It has a school similar to West Point. It has heroes in the Second World War as that. So if you can do that, you will be getting talent from places other than what you are getting. And the selection process. Last point I want to talk about, as Sir spoke about, personnel below officer rank. Now, they need to be made more responsible and more qualified. I think we are looking for a very good thing, which we have already tried, direct recruitment of certain appointments at the higher level. And last of all, I would say, the army officer must also have the capability of being sidestepped to other organizations, including the Ministry of Defense, which I think would come in automatically, as General Arora said, if all these issues come in.
Okay, well, that the last one is something which has always been there in the demand list. Let's bring in Sudhi here. Sudhi, you've heard both the gentlemen here, and one question which is being asked by many is the timing of these reforms. Is it the right time for the Indian Army? As General Arora pointed out, that we're 18 years into the 21st century, given by, going by the kind of adversaries we have on both sides and the kind of warfare which is being entered into now, it is the opportune time. But is it actually the right time to go ahead and downsize, right size your army, go ahead and let go of around 1.5 lakh personnel right now?
Well, I would completely agree with General Arora, and it is not only the right, because you have to begin somewhere or the other, and any time is as good as the right time or the wrong time. But apart from the fact of the general neighborhood and all that, we must also look into the fact about resources and revenues that are available. It is a fact that we want to keep the army, the military, very well equipped. We want to take care of our veterans very well. We want to ensure that people who go into the military are taken care of. But at the same point of time, there are competing demands on the kitty. And the pie is as small, and it is growing, but the requirements that are there. The obvious choice, therefore, is, do you want a big lumbering army, military, or you want a very lean, mean, fit military? Because things are moving on to technology. Now, acquiring technology at any given point of time is costly. But acquiring manpower may be easy right now, but in the long run, it becomes a drag on the economy, on the revenue.
Due to recurring costs.
So there is a time you have to say that, yes, we can get into trouble, but we have to start. Otherwise, we get into bigger and deeper trouble.
Okay. One more important aspect before I go to General Arora is something which you mentioned in your articles as well about the integrated battle group, something which General Chakraborty also mentioned. What exactly is the rationale behind having these smaller, meaner units rather than going in for specific divisions? And if you have them, then why not have them everywhere? Why then have both the concepts which are being talked about have divisions as well and the IBGs as well?
Well, I would leave this to the practitioners, because they have practiced it and they have led troops. But from a common man's point of view, as we break it down for our readers, for our viewers, I would say it this way, that number one, these kind of mean, lean fighting groups will not be there everywhere. It will depend on the individual commander, the chiefs and the army commanders to decide how they want to commit troops. That said, the conflict that you can expect is perhaps not going to be a long drawn conflict. It is going to be a short, quick conflict. And in that, mobilization, as we have seen, is going to be, you need to mobilize very, very fast. How do you mobilize very fast? Today, when you commit a brigade, the brigade commander or the div commander thinks about, okay, how do I add on a RT element to it? How do I add on an air element to it? How do I add on a signals element to it? Now, this perhaps takes a little bit of time. So, if you train together, if you work together, you are ready to be committed into battle.
Okay. Okay, let's go into General Arora on this. General Arora, since Sudhi also said that, let's hear it from the practitioners themselves. Clearly, from your point of view, the concept of IBGs, the integrated battle group, is that something which is going to be a very workable element here, given the size and the structure of Indian Army right now?
Surely, I do think so. The idea has not come out of nowhere. after the attack on Parliament on 13 December 2001, we went into Operation Parakram, where for the first time this cold start strategy was promulgated, and it depended on battle groups or brigade groups going deep into enemy territory. These are smaller, you could say brigade sized, all arms integrated battle groups. Although they have not been practiced in actual war, they have been war gamed during exercises, and it's been found to be practical. The reason is that if you want swift, fast, highly mobile operations with deep penetration, these are the groups who can deliver, rather than a division which is a much bigger, heavy, lumbering force which may take more time and may not achieve the kind of objectives that are required. Today, the objective is to destroy the enemy rather than capture territory. With a nuclear dimension and with the kind of obstacles which the border is ridden with, it takes quite a lot of time, number of days to cross these obstacles and capture territory. On the other hand, if you can have more agile battle groups going into enemy territory, destroying his forces, and also you depend more on firepower and precision weapons, you will achieve much more. This is the philosophy on which these integrated battle groups are being thought of, and hence there is also a slightly misinformed debate in social media that the rank of brigadier is being done away with, there will be more major generals, premising it that they want better prospects for the officers. No, these battle groups are going to be much bigger than brigades, because it will have all the resources of the artillery and supporting arms and services integrated with them. So an officer of a higher rank than brigadier would be required. Incidentally, it may also achieve the result of better prospects, more higher ranks for the officers. But remember, there was a time when there was no colonel rank. It was only a few appointments were tenable by colonels. The commanding officers from lieutenant colonel actually became brigadiers, but now all commanding officers are colonels. So that is an aside. But the integrated battle groups, again, the second part of your question is, yes, it depends on the terrain and the environment that they will be used in. There is no requirement for such integrated battle groups, maybe in the mountains, but definitely in the plains where mobile operations will go on. But these integrated battle groups, when they are reorganized as such, they require the kind of support by way of modernization, by way of all the latest equipment. They will be working under network-centric operational environment, high technology environment. So concomitantly, they must have assurances of modern equipment, the finances required to equip them as such, and the command and control structures, the communication structures that go with it.
Okay. So clearly, that is something which explains, the reason to have smaller and meaner groups like the IBGs. Let's bring in Jan Chakraborty here again. Jan Chakraborty, one of the aspects of these 4 studies is cadre review and fulfilling the aspirations of both the men and the officers in uniform. How do you believe this aspect can be tackled as far as the recommendations of these studies, and apart from these recommendations as well, when we talk about the holistic reforms for the armed forces, because the cadre review is something which has been talked about quite a lot in the previous committees as well, and fulfilling the aspirations also?
Well, see, I would put it this much. Force structure, modernization, cadre review are all linked to one another. It's like national security strategy. You have a LTPIP, and then you have a force which does it. So firstly, moment you modernize the force, you have groups which are operationalized for the current environment. You will naturally have a cadre which is fitting into it. And once you today reduce, or let us say optimize, let's use the correct word, you optimize the manpower. This optimization is obviously going to lead to reduction. Once you start optimizing in this transformation process, it will automatically lead to better aspirations and better objectives. Moment you make a heavy, today's aim is what? One is, we have our adversaries, all of us are nuclear powers. That means your window for undertaking operations, as he has brought out, is extremely limited. And you have to do everything with one word. Your safety lies in speed, and that speed has to be tremendous. And I think, as he has very correctly brought it out, it has to be more leading to destruction rather than capture of, say, territory. Now, if this be the case, now let's look at what is the cadre requirement. The moment you make independent battle groups, you're going to have obviously higher officers to command levels which are there. And the moment you get away with divisions and you have today independent battle groups, wherever it's required, based, as he said correctly, on, I'll say, the geographical terrain, and the next is the task which is related to it, you are going to have today more officers who are required for specialist tasks. Similarly, our men, he brought out a very important thing. You can't have just an independent battle group without modern weapons, modern command and control systems. Moment you give these modern command and control systems, you require a higher degree of preparedness as far as the manpower is concerned.
So it's all interlinked.
It's all interlinked, sir. It's all interlinked. And for all this, it comes to one thing. You require a capital budget higher. You can't have today, let's say, an ultralight howitzer and a man today who cannot today operate the computer. Let's say you got today the K9 Thunder. I'm just giving you equipments which are already being in. You got the BrahMos missile already inducted. Who's the man going to do it? So the cadre review automatically comes in, satisfaction comes in. The pay scales automatically get what you call, shall we say, equalized, if I may say. Equivalence will automatically come in. Because when today you have, let us say, this composite battle groups instead of a brigade or a division, you automatically could have any rank which is suitable for it. Based on 6, 7, 8 or whatever battalions are there, you will have the artillery regiments. So whatever be the rank, he's there.
So everything moves hands in gloves and all the aspirations will also be taken care of.
I would just compare, I'll just make it very simple for a layman. Today you got a hospital. Today you got what you call, the days are gone when general practitioners are in any hospital. Somebody lands up there. You have got departments of, say, someone is dealing with pulmonologists, you have got a what you call rheumatologist, the names are nephrologists, you got all these logists, and you have a problem. And ultimately the problem is put through a CAT scan or a PET scan or a metascan, and all these specialists keep addressing it. What has happened? Overall, that hospital today has got doctors of a higher degree. The same thing is, and it has resulted in modernization.
The specialists.
Today when you get the report of a patient, you got everything in it, it's automated. The same thing is going to happen to the Indian Army. So the cadre gets modernized along with the equipment.
We are running short of time, but let's quickly take a reaction from General Arora as well on this issue of cadre review and addressing the aspirations of the men and the officers as well in uniform.
Yes. I think this cadre review, both of the officers and in a way of the JCOs and other ranks, is meeting the organizational requirement first and then the aspirations of the personnel. When I say meeting the requirements of the organization, 8,000 officers are deficient in the Indian Army today. The Navy has lesser and Air Force has even lesser. But first requirement is to make up this shortfall and also improve their prospects, their career prospects. So it is taking care of that. JCOs and other ranks, the Army feels have got far more potential than is being assumed and than it is being utilized at the moment. So it would like the officers to have entry into the JCOs and other ranks to have entry into the officers cadre and laterally into the armed forces headquarters cadre, and also when they retire to go into the NCC and other fields so their employability is also taken care of after retirement. I think these are noble ideals. I hope that these are achieved and the Ministry of Defence will also accept these proposals, because these are the proposals which require the concurrence of the Ministry of Defence.
Now, let's take a concluding comment from Sudhi here. Sudhi, if you look at both the short-term and the long-term effect of these reforms, one part of the question is that the way they have to implement it, what can that be? And two, Is this going to be enough, or will this have to be, supplemented with some other set of reforms so that, at a later stage, the overall vision is being implemented or is reflected in the final picture?
Well, to begin with, I mean, by the very nature of it, military, no reform or no change is the final change, because the requirements keep changing. So maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, you may need to change again. And the military is agile, and military has its own think tanks within itself, people with a lot of vision within it to do these changes. They've done that in the past. They are doing it right now. So it may need a change. And to go back to the other question, yes, it is the need of the hour. It is the need of the hour. Perhaps it should have been done a little earlier. How do you implement it? I think it's going to take time. And nobody better than the military should be left alone to implement it the way they want it. Because, military has very many, it functions differently. It has its own quirks. There are reasons why they have it. So let them decide how they want to do it. Vis-a-vis the government can extend a helping hand in, going through these, these changes that are coming. These will be far-reaching changes, and these will be transformational changes, as you said. Big changes will definitely. Okay. These are big changes.
Okay, so clearly, as our panelists have pointed out, these are going to be big and transformational changes as far as the reforms in Indian Army is concerned, and it is required both on the front of modernization as well as restructuring. We'll come back again next week with a different topic and different set of guests. Till then, keep watching Rajya Television.